when we teach our fast track, one of the core elements that we suggest that everybody have in that fast track is, what I'll call a guarantee. Now, it's not actually a guarantee. What it really is better stated is risk mitigation. Okay. Here's what we know about people who are willing to spend high amounts of money on anything. A, they're willing to spend the money. The objection is not the money. So whatever you're selling, if you're in this mindset of like, oh, I don't know if they can afford it or whatever, wrong mindset or the wrong potential prospect. The right prospect, when presented with the right idea, the example you're going to hear me use a million times over, and I apologize if you've heard me say it a million times over, but I might as well just say it anyways. It's the idea like when somebody walks into a McLaren dealership with an intention to buy, so not a browser like, oh, I wish one day I can touch the car. Like, no, I'm ready to buy a car today. When someone walks into a McLaren dealership, a Ferrari dealership, they're not there to haggle on price. You recognize that, right? And like when the person on the other end is like, that'll be $489,000, they're not like, oh my God, can you throw in an extra pair of floor mats? Like that is not the conversation, right? The conversation is, cool, okay, no problem on the money, like let's boogie. But anybody who's prepared to spend a high dollar value, what we call a premium service, anyone who's willing to do that, the two things they're asking in their mind is, can I trust you? And is my risk mitigated? As long as I can be sure that I can trust you on some level, and that's where social proof and endorsements and all that comes in, that's a separate conversation. And so one of the things that I always have is people reach out to me all the time and say, Nick, I'll run your social for you. I'll edit your videos. I'll do whatever. We'll grow your Instagram and whatever. My question is always, cool, what's the cost? And they'll say something like, cool, $10,000 a month. I'm like, okay, fine. What is the milestones and what is the performance element that you're going to attach to this? And it doesn't have to be a hard number. It's just, how are you mitigating my risk? If I'm going to invest 10 grand and your minimum contract is 6 months, that's 60 grand. I'm happy to spend it, except if you're just like, well, there's no guarantee, there's no performance, there's no nothing, then I'm like, well, no, sorry, we don't have a deal. So all of us have to think about when we make an offer, how do we mitigate the risk? Now, that risk mitigation could, in fact, be an actual guarantee that's attached to a hard number. And in some of our industries, we could do that. So, for example, in my fast track, when we onboard someone in our done for you thing, we guarantee them a certain number of qualified calls on the calendar if we build their process for them. Otherwise, the risk is mitigated. And so it's an easy yes for them because they're like, okay, well, you have something on the line and I have something on the line. Cool. We also had someone go through our fast track coaching program, and they help women who couldn't conceive get pregnant. That was their kind of like coaching offer in the health space. Now, of course, they couldn't be like, if you don't get pregnant in 90 days, you don't pay. Like that's absolutely like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And in fact, they even say, we're not God. We can't create babies inside of your belly. So they said, well, what is the risk that we can mitigate for someone who's considering working with us? And when we dove into it even deeper, their main thing was, I can't guarantee you pregnancy, but with the series of lab tests that we do, because they work with people that have been diagnosed, that's probably the wrong word, but diagnosed with unexplained infertility. In other words, they saw a specialist, the specialist like, we don't know. Everything points to you should being able to get pregnant. So unexplained infertility, their risk mitigation was this. If by the end of our testing process, we can't tell you the reason you're not getting pregnant, then you don't pay and you no longer work with us. But if through our testing, we can tell you the reason, as indicated by all this deep diagnostic testing that we do, blood work, this, that, and the other, then we will build a plan for you based on the specific needs that you have, and we will go forward in that way. We can't guarantee you'll get pregnant, but what we can guarantee is that you have more insight as to why you're not getting pregnant. And through that insight, at least you'll know that you'll have a plan that helps resolve that issue. So you can see in certain cases, we may not be able to promise a certain get pregnant or not, lose weight or not. We might not be able to say that. But what we can say is some variation of it. And ultimately, what the person on the other end is looking for is, do you have as much skin in the game as me? Because anytime someone feels like that is lopsided, where I'm spending the money, I'm doing all the work, you person who's charging me have nothing at stake here, that's where the scales tip and people are like, oh, I'd like to, but I don't know for sure. And in our marketing, especially in today's day and age where there's so much competition and so many people saying the same thing and so much this, that, and the other, again, just see it from the perspective of not a guarantee or not. See it from the perspective of what are the main objections that they're worried about? What are the risks that are playing in their mind to say, if I do invest, what do I have to lose? And then see how you, as the business owner, can alleviate that risk on some level. And that's all we're really talking about here is mitigating risk is what allows and do it in a normal, sane way too, right? Because there's some people out there, you'll see with their ads, it's like, if you don't make $10 million in the next 10 days, not only am I going to give you all your money back, but I'll cut you a check for 90 gazillion dollars and we're all going to be amazing. Like, people have heard that so much now that they don't even believe those anymore. So we need to be honest in our risk mitigation and be like, look, I can't promise that you're going to get pregnant. I can't promise. I'm not God. I don't know. There might be other factors going on here. But what I can know is with confidence through our testing that we'll be able to identify the reason for your unexplained infertility. And as long as you have that reason, and here's the crazy part about this is that most of the women who are looking to get pregnant, of course, their major goal is, I want to get pregnant. But what really keeps them up at night with unexplained infertility is not knowing why. If you can answer that, you've actually provided an amazing solution for somebody. And for some people, that's worth the cost of admission. They're like, maybe I can't get pregnant. Maybe I'm on a path that's not in my destiny. But for the first time in my life, someone has told me why. And now I feel better. I don't feel great, but I feel better. For all of us here, whenever we are selling something, especially something of higher value, what I would call a premium offer, the two major swinging points are credibility and authority. Can I trust you? And because trust is at an all-time low right now. So how do we build the trust? Separate conversation. Secondly, how can we mitigate the risk of the person who is saying, I want to do this, but I just want to know that there's some form of risk mitigation. The last thing I will say here, though, because people then, the next question is, well, like, I can't guarantee because I don't know if they'll do the work. I don't know if they'll follow the diet. I don't know if they'll go through with all of it. That's a given. That should all be in your agreement to say this guarantee is predicated on blank, 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 and blank. You got to show up to all the calls. You got to follow the diet to the T. You got to show me that you're doing everything that I asked you. And then it seems reasonable. If you do your part and you don't get a result, cool. I don't deserve your money. Right. So that, I think, is the important thing that we just need to understand about the idea of risk mitigation. It's super important, but it doesn't always have to be tied to a specific result. It's more understanding what the prospect is desiring, what they're worried about, and how can we alleviate that on the other end for them.